Well, good morning and welcome back to Park City Church. My name is Matt. I'm the pastor here, and it's my privilege to welcome you this morning. There's been a lot of chat lately about returning to normal and the new normal, whatever that might look like. Lots of speculation and modeling, lots of questions, and maybe you have a lot of those questions as well. Will we ever get back to normal, and what will that even look like or mean? Our hope over these next few weeks at Park City is that as we sit with the Easter story and the story of the resurrection, that we'll discover that the promise that we find there has something to say to this particular moment and feeling that we're in. That as we look at conversations that Jesus will have with some of those disciples shortly after his resurrection, people like Mary Magdalene, Peter, and Doubting Thomas, that over the course of these conversations, we'll see Jesus nudging and prodding his followers then and his followers now towards a new normal, towards hope. And so our hope and prayer is that wherever you might find yourself over these next few weeks as we come together as Park City Church, whatever your questions might be, whatever your concerns this morning, as we sing and hear scripture and reflect on its meaning, that you'll sense that same nudge and invitation from Jesus today, a nudge towards something new, a new kind of normal, full of hope. Will you sing with us?
Filled with mercies are new. Over and over, your mercies are new. Over and over, as surely as the morning comes. You're faithful. I'll sing of your love. Over and over, I'll sing of your love. Over and over, I'll sing with every setting sun that you're faithful. Never failing. And every time I fall, you're there to catch me. And when I try to run, your kindness chases me. How you chase me, your compassions never end. 'Cause your mercies are new. Over and over, your mercies are new. Over and over, as surely as the morning comes. You're faithful. I'll sing of your love. Over and over, I'll sing of your love. Over and over, I'll sing with every setting sun that you're faithful. And your favor will last for a lifetime. And your anchor will hold through the night. And with every breath I will sing of your love, your love. 'Cause your favor will last for a lifetime. And your anchor will hold through the night. And with every breath I will sing of your love, your love. 'Cause your mercies are new. Over and over, your mercies are new. Over and over, as surely as the morning comes. You're faithful. I'll sing of your love. Over and over, I'll sing of your love. Over and over, I'll sing with every setting sun that you're faithful.
John chapter 20, verse 11 through 18 says this. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. And as she wept, she stooped to look into the tomb. And she saw two angels in white, sitting where the body of Jesus had lain, one at the head and one at the feet. They said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? She said to them, They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him. Having said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking? Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. Jesus said to her, Mary. She turned and said to him in Aramaic, Rabboni, which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord," and that he had said these things to her. It's a phrase I think that, again, we've heard a lot these days, this getting back to a new normal or finding our new normal. And it occurs to me that this is a process or an adjustment that we make all the time, sometimes in more superficial ways than others. I remember when I grew up in Georgia, and when I moved up north for the first time, I remember quickly learning that yes ma'am was not going to stay a regular part of my vocabulary, and also that pop was going to be my new generic term for soda. I mean, these were small changes, but adjustments to new normals for me. I think too of maybe new parents on a more substantial level, new parents adjusting to new normals as they step into a season of life where the little one is demanding everything from them and upending all of their normal rhythms and routines, and certainly disrupting sleep. Or again, maybe like the moment we're in of virtual meetings, the new normal of kids interrupting or pets making their way into Zoom meetings and disrupting kind of what would have been sort of focused, uninterrupted times of work for you. But I think that during this season, this idea of like a new normal is something we are familiar with. Perhaps, again, on a more significant note, I do think new normals of loss or grief or disease are moments in life where we have to adjust. We adjust to life without or life apart from others and from those we love. All of these, some of them, again, smaller, some of them more significant ways in which we adjust or adapt to new normals. And I think for the disciples in this passage in John's Gospel, this is the kind of moment they find themselves in our reading today. They're in a fog of confusion and grief, uncertainty. They are separated and distanced from Jesus. He's dead, and now they can't find his body, and there is all sorts of confusion and uncertainty as they try to adjust to this change in their lives, this loss. There's a lot I think we could consider in this passage, in this interaction between Jesus and Mary Magdalene, but I just want to focus our attention on one phrase in this conversation that I think and hope will nudge us all in the direction of hope and in the direction of the new normal that Christ has worked for us on this side of his resurrection. And it comes right at the end of that conversation. It's a brief one, but Jesus turns to her and says, "Go and tell my brothers, say to them, I'm ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." And this, I think, is a movement. This remark kind of notes a shift in the way Jesus is inviting his followers to relate to their Creator. That the movement in this passage is not only a movement from grief to hope as Mary bumps into Jesus unexpectedly, but it's also a movement from distance to nearness. A reminder that in this moment, for Mary and for others, that whatever that gap or distance may have been, that somehow through the cross and the resurrection, Jesus is closing the gap between God and his followers. That this, he says, is my Father and your Father. There's a movement here, I suppose, from grief to hope, yes, but also from distance to nearness. I think it's really been in John's Gospel from the beginning. When he first introduces us to Jesus, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, John will write. He continues in that opening introduction, describing the purpose of his coming, and says that a result of the work of Jesus will be the right to become children of God. So right there from the beginning, as John presents Jesus, we bump into this eventual move, this nudge towards calling God Father, our Father. And then the rest of the pages in John's Gospel, more than really any of the others, this emphasis on Jesus as the Son and God as his Father. We bump into it over and over and over again until finally we come to this moment after the resurrection. This side of the work of the cross and the resurrection, Jesus inviting his disciples into that relationship in a way as he tells them, I'm going to my Father and your Father. I think if you've been following Park City for the last few weeks, we were sitting with the Lord's Prayer. And this, I think, is a natural tie-in with where we started in that journey together of praying the Our Father. That somehow Jesus, through exhausting the work of evil and sin on the cross and now in his resurrection, Jesus has opened up a new normal, a new life and hope in front of us. And it's a life that invites a new way of relating to our Creator. That not only is Jesus the Son, that not only is God his Father, but Jesus says to his followers, I'm going to my Father and your Father. That the way into the Our Father that we spent the last several weeks praying, the way that we sort of step into this boldly we say kind of prayer, is directly through the cross and the resurrection of Jesus. I took some, what I think was good-natured ribbing recently on telling lots of stories about my kids in these sermons and messages, and I'm not going to do that this morning. Instead, I'm going to tell you a story about my nephew. And I was chatting with my sister, and she was just recounting shared a conversation she had with her little boy who's 4. And in that conversation, my nephew said, when I grow up, I'm going to fight the virus and beat Batman. And then we can go to Grandma's house today. When I grow up, I'm going to fight the virus and beat Batman. And then we can go to Grandma's today. I think as I hear that story and think about this reading from John's Gospel, that this, I think, is maybe why the resurrection of Jesus is so shocking. That there is wrapped up in my nephew's comments that one day things will be different. Things will change. One day this will get better. And I think some of the shock of the resurrection was kind of wrapped up in this idea that even for the sort of religious landscape in the day and time of Jesus, there was a belief that one day resurrection would make things right. And we bump into it even in John's Gospel. Earlier in the Gospel, Jesus has a conversation with a friend, Martha, who's lost her brother. And in engaging with her, Jesus is inviting hope, and she says, I know that he will rise again one day in the resurrection at the last day. That one day things will be better. But Jesus pulls her forward and says, no, I am the resurrection and the life. That yes, things will change one day, but that change starts now with me. That through his resurrection, Jesus brings that day close. Into the middle of all of our mess and brokenness and grief and isolation now, because of the cross and the resurrection, Jesus brings a bit of that hope of the future into this present moment. And there's lots of wondering. Will we get back to normal? What will normal look like? But as we sit with this story this morning, I'm struck that in the middle of all of that fear and uncertainty is the hope that God is close. That because of the work of Christ, even in the middle of all this mess, we call him Father. That all of that worry and fear and anxiety and uncertainty would find rest in the context of this new relationship with our Creator. That we would now know him as Father. That the distance and the gap would be closed not by any work of our own, but by the work of Christ on our behalf. And so maybe you're alone this morning. You're feeling alone or separated or isolated. Maybe even in your faith there's confusion and doubt or uncertainty. This side of Easter, I think this side of the resurrection is the promise of a new that he is your Father, that he has closed the gap, that burden and responsibility is not on you or me, that whatever else may be going on in our lives, there is the promise and the certainty that hope, not despair, that life, not death, will have the final word, yes, but will also have the immediate word. That separation and distance will not win the day, but nearness, because of the work of Christ. We can know God as Father. And so, as you go this week into your own season and periods of waiting and uncertainty, wrestling with your own realities of new normal, right into the middle of all of that, may grace and mercy, peace be with you from God the Father, your Father, and from Jesus Christ, the Father's Son, in truth and love. Amen. Go in peace, praise God.